What's a mistake that you made once that you'll never make again? Turn the oven on without first checking if there's anything inside. Edit, goodness. I didn't expect such a response. So glad my mistake resonates with many of you. Mine was a plastic cutting board someone had stored in my oven. They were trying to help me clean, not sure why they thought it was a good storage place. I didn't know, as I kept my oven empty, until the flawless smell came from there and the whole thing had melted into the whole thing. Took me a while to get the smell and hard plastic off. Removing my towel after a shower next to a bed with a curious 3-month-old kitten in it. That little fucker pounced off the bed, and latched onto my dangly bits, teeth on the tip and claws in the berries. I'm also quite allergic to cats, so there was so much swelling that I considered sending a dick pic to my girl away on business to say, "Are you impressed yet?" But there was a lot of blood. The worst part about it is not only was I in an incredible amount of pain, and everyone knows that you have to basically explain your story 3 times at a hospital. Once to the desk clerk, once to the nurse, and once to the doctor. Except this was also a teaching hospital. Going through with getting married even though I knew and felt it wasn't right. Days before I became nervous, but it wasn't the ordinary cold feet most people feel. I genuinely knew it wasn't right. We already had so many problems. We met online and she was gorgeous. But the red flags were easily identified. I knew the first date she was very negative. She talked more about what she doesn't like versus what she does like. But once the wedding was happening, I felt there was no going backwards. Until this day, my friend still jokes about taking a picture with the exit in the background. The day of my wedding he supported me exiting if I decided it wasn't right for me. I'm happily divorced after 3 years of hell. When I was in high school, Dave Coulier, Uncle Joey from Full House, came to my school and gave a talk about following your dreams. I was a shitty punk teenager who thought it'd be funny to ask him about Alanis Morissette's song You Oughta Know, which was allegedly written about him. He gave me the death glare which still haunts me. It was just so incompatible with how friendly his face usually looks. Anyway, I'm probably not gonna repeat that mistake because the odds of meeting Dave Coulier twice seem pretty low. If you're reading this, Mr. Coulier, then I apologize. When I was a kid, I was waiting in my parents' car and, as kids do, I was fiddling around with things. Neither of my parents smoked, but the car had a cigarette lighter that came with it in the port. I didn't know what it did at the time. I ended up pressing it into the port, and I was curious about how that worked. So I spent a little bit looking at it and concluded that maybe something inside it had been pressed in. And I pulled it out and stuck my finger inside to see if I could press it in. And that's how I got my first second-degree burn. Being too friendly in a work setting. When I first started working after college, I tried to be nice and make friends with all my coworkers. I quickly learned that this is how you attract the attention of the gossips, and that anything you say will become office business after that point. When at work, do not talk. Listen. Learn the office politics and see who are the good people to befriend and who are the ones you should avoid anything except polite small talk with. Also, never say anything at work that you wouldn't be comfortable with everyone at work knowing. Had a mental breakdown after a very bloody suicide at work. I work as a corrections officer in Australia. I couldn't go home because I was so rattled. I drove to a park and parked under a tree and just cried. I had a few bottles of wine in the car for my days off. Drank them in the car. Threw the keys in the back and had my breakdown away from my partner. A cop pulled up several hours later and reefs me out of the car. Turns out sitting in the driver's seat with the keys still in the cabin is still drink driving. Had to go to hospital, then court, lost my license for a year and had to get an interlocker device for 2 years. Absolute bullshit. Not many people know the law. If I was in the passenger seat it would have been fine. Went to one of those, listen to our sales pitch to get a free honeymoon things while planning our wedding. It was a pitch for pots and pans. Went in with the understanding that we didn't need to buy anything, so no big deal. My wife and I got to the car after it was over, looked at each other and realized we just signed our names to pay a ridiculous amount of money for a pots and pans set we didn't need. Those salespeople are talented. Luckily, my father-in-law showed us that we could cancel, and we did. Being as flexible as I once was. Unfortunately, in my experience, some people will take advantage of that flexibility. Even the people that I know that didn't try to exploit my flexibility eventually started to expect my flexibility when it came to everything. So when I finally try to express my opinion on something that I'm not as flexible about, some people take that as aggression or not being a team player. It really sucks. I'm pretty relaxed when it comes to 95% of life's decisions, to the point that people are surprised when I speak up, but I'm tired of being walked all over. This includes all aspects of my life. Work especially.